Hello, you're watching Movie Snapshot Scenes, and this is the summary of The Exorcist. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Georgetown, 1973. A quiet autumn wind rattled the windows of the McNeil residence, where actress Chris McNeil was finishing another long day on set. Her 12-year-old daughter, Regan, played alone in the attic, a bright, imaginative child, with a penchant for science and Ouija boards. At first, the changes were subtle. Furniture moved when no one was looking. Strange scratching sounds echoed through the heating vents. Regan began complaining about the man in her room at night. Oh, presence with breathing like wet gravel. Chris dismissed it as nightmares, even when her daughter's once sweet voice took on a guttural edge. Then came the bed shaking. Chris awoke one night to Regan's screams. She found her daughter's four-poster bed rocking violently, the wooden legs pounding the floorboards like drumsticks. When it stopped seconds later, Regan sat up with a dazed expression. "It wasn't me, Mommy," she whispered. The pediatrician found nothing wrong. The psychiatrist suggested stress from Chris's divorce. But when Regan suddenly hurled a chair across the room during dinner, without touching it, Chris's wine glass slipped from her fingers. "What the hell was that?" demanded Burke Dennings, Chris's director and house guest. Regan just smiled, a slow, alien stretch of lips. "That wasn't me either." That night, Chris discovered Regan's bedroom floor impossibly cold, the walls bleeding moisture like sweat, and in the center of it all, her little girl sat cross-legged on the bed, scrawling the same phrase over and over in a child's handwriting. "Help Matey." Words dissolved as Chris watched, the ink turning to rust-colored sludge that dripped down the pages. Somewhere in the house, the Ouija board's planchette began moving by itself. Father Karras walked the Georgetown University campus like a ghost in a priest's collar. Grief had hollowed him out, his mother's recent death in a squalid asylum, his wavering faith, the whiskey bottles piling up in his apartment. Psychiatry training couldn't explain why he kept dreaming of her corpse whispering in Latin. Chris McNeil found him after Mass. "Something's wrong with my daughter." Her hands trembled around a cigarette. "The doctors say it's dissociative disorder, but..." "Father, she spoke backwards last night." In a voice that wasn't hers, Karras agreed to visit, though he expected nothing worse than childhood trauma. The McNeil house smelled of spoiled meat and candle wax. Upstairs, Regan's bedroom door was scratched raw, deep gouges forming symbols Karras recognized from exorcism manuals, Vox Demonica. The girl sat in a nest of soiled sheets, her pajamas, crusted with something dark. Where bright eyes should have been, two black pits stared. "Regan!" Karras approached, her head snapped sideways with a wet crack, spine curving like a question mark. The voice that came out was a chorus of screams filtered through broken glass. "You! Let your mother die in that room, Damien!" Karras stumbled back. Regan hadn't known his name. Downstairs, Chris sobbed over Burke Dennings' broken body, found that morning at the bottom of the stairs, his neck twisted completely around. The police called it an accident, but Regan's fingernails were packed with flesh. That night, Karras knelt in his apartment, rosary beads cutting into his palms. The demon had quoted his mother's last words verbatim. Across town, Regan's bedroom mirror shattered without touch, glass shards forming words on the floor. "Bring me the priest," and in the darkness beneath Regan's bed, something began to laugh. The Archbishop's office smelled of old books and sacramental wine. Karras sat across from the elderly cleric, his notes on Regan's case spread between them. Pages filled with impossible phenomena. Levitation, telekinesis, knowledge of events the child couldn't possibly know. "These are classic signs of possession." The Archbishop sighed, adjusting his glasses. "But the Church requires medical and psychological clearance before approving an exorcism." "I'm a psychiatrist," Karras countered. "There's no diagnosis for what's happening to that girl." A sudden chill filled the room. The Archbishop's crucifix fell from the wall, the chain unbroken. That night, Chris called Karras in hysterics. Regan had floated 6 feet above her bed for nearly a minute, her body rigid as a plank. When she came down, she spoke in perfect Aramaic, a dead language Regan had never studied. Karras arrived to find the house in chaos. Regan's bedroom door shook on its hinges as something inside pounded against it. The air smelled of sulfur and rotting flowers. He entered to find Regan, or what had been Regan, crouched in the corner. The child's face was corpse grey, her lips cracked and bleeding. When she turned, Karras saw her eyes had rolled back completely white. "You doubt your faith, Damien," the thing sneered in a voice like grinding stones. "Yet here I am." Before Karras could react, Regan's body snapped upright. Her head spun 180 degrees with a sickening crunch, the demon laughing through the child's broken neck. "Show me your power then," Karras challenged, gripping his rosary. "Leave the girl." The demon hurled Regan's body across the room like a rag doll. She impacted the wall with bone-breaking force, then slithered up it like a spider, stopping inches from the ceiling. "I'll leave when she's dead," it promised. "Downstairs," Chris screamed as Regan's bed began beating against the floor in perfect sync with the demon's words. Thump, I. Thump, want. Thump, her. Thump, soul. Karras realized with dawning horror. This wasn't just any demon. It had come specifically for Regan, and it knew his every weakness. The Georgetown house had become a battleground. Chris McNeil paced the living room, her once elegant home now a maze of holy water fonts and crucifixes. Medical equipment stood unused in the corner. The doctors had given up weeks ago. Father Karras knelt by Regan's bed, his stole damp with sweat. For 3 hours he'd recited prayers, but the demon only mocked him, twisting scripture into blasphemies. The girl's wrists were raw from restraints, her sheets stained with urine and something darker. "She hasn't eaten in 6 days," Chris whispered. "How is she still alive?" As if answering, Regan's stomach distended suddenly, rippling like something moved beneath the skin. A deep gurgling voice erupted from her throat. "She feeds me, Damien. Every time you doubt, I grow stronger." Then, silence. The bedroom door creaked open without touch. A figure stood silhouetted in the hallway, tall, gaunt, his breathing labored. The scent of myrrh and desert wind cut through the room's stench of decay. Father Merrin had come. The elderly exorcist moved with the weight of centuries, his hands trembling not from fear, but from Parkinson's. He said nothing as he approached the bed, his pale eyes locking onto Regan's twisted face. The demon shrieked, "Merrin!" Regan's body convulsed, the voice shifting through a dozen accents. "This time I'll break you." Merrin simply opened his small case, removing a vial of holy water and a worn leather-bound ritual book. His first words came as both command and benediction. "In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti." The holy water struck Regan's forehead like acid. Her skin blistered instantly, the smell of burning flesh filling the room. The bed began to levitate, sheets wrapping around her throat as the demon retaliated. Karras watched in awe as Merrin stood unshaken, continuing the Latin rites with quiet intensity. For the first time since the haunting began, the priest saw real fear in the demon's eyes. Then the lights failed. In the blackness, something wet and many-legged scurried across the ceiling. Regan's laughter came from everywhere at once, above, them, behind them, inside their minds. When the lamps flickered back on, Merrin was gripping his chest in pain. But his voice never wavered as he whispered to Karras, "This is only the beginning." Midnight. The house groaned like a living thing as the two priests prepared their holy arsenal. Merrin's aged fingers traced the pages of the Ritual Romanum, while Karras secured new restraints, thick leather straps that already showed signs of supernatural wear. Regan's body lay contorted on the bed, her spine arched impossibly backward. The demon had been quiet for an hour, a silence more terrible than its screams. Chris hovered in the doorway, her face a mask of exhausted horror. Merrin began, "Exorcismus te, omnis immundus spiritus." The reaction was immediate. Regan's stomach distended violently, her mouth stretching into a grotesque smile full of needle-sharp teeth that hadn't been there moments before. The bedroom temperature plummeted, their breath fogging in the sudden cold. "You're too late!" the demon shrieked, through Regan's ruined vocal cords. The girl's head began to rotate, slowly at first, then in sickening full circles, tendons snapping and reforming with each revolution. Karras lunged forward with holy water. The liquid boiled on contact, searing demonic flesh that healed instantly. Regan's hand shot out with unnatural strength, crushing Karras's wrist until bones ground together. Merrin never faltered. He pressed a silver crucifix to Regan's forehead. The metal seared into flesh, the stench of burning meat filling the room as the demon howled in rage. "She was mine from the beginning." The walls began to bleed, thick black fluid oozing from the wallpaper in pulsating streams. The liquid formed words. "Help." Karras hesitated. Was this Regan or the demon's trick? His doubt gave the entity an opening. With a sound like tearing meat, Regan's body levitated, hovering 6 feet above the bed. Her nightgown ripped away to reveal, stomach muscles rippling with unnatural movement, as if something inside was trying to claw its way out. Merrin's voice rose above the chaos. "Exe crucem domini, fugit partes adversae!" The crucifix glowed white-hot. For one terrifying moment, the priests saw the true form inside Regan, a monstrous, shifting thing of smoke and rotting teeth. Then all the windows shattered inward as the demon's final retaliation began. Dawn approached, but no light penetrated the cursed house. The exorcism had raged for hours, leaving both priests battered, Merrin's laboured breaths coming in wet gasps, Karras's collar soaked with blood and holy water. Regan's body was failing. Her skin had turned corpse blue, bones protruding at unnatural angles. Yet the demon's power grew stronger, hurling furniture with telekinetic fury. A flying dresser shattered Karras's ribs, sending him crashing into the hallway. Merrin stood alone, before the bed, his ancient voice never wavering. "Imperat tibi Christus." The demon retaliated with Regan's frail hands, clawing at the old priest's face. Deep gouges opened on Merrin's cheeks as his crucifix melted against Regan's flesh. With a final guttural scream, the entity unleashed its full wrath. Merrin's heart stuttered, then failed completely. The great exorcist collapsed without sound, his body folding like a marionette with cut strings. Silence, then laughter, wet and bubbling from Regan's ruined throat. The demon had won. But Karras saw movement in Merrin's dead hand. The old priest had left him one final weapon, a small vial of holy oil from Jerusalem. With his last strength, Karras charged. He tackled Regan's body through the bedroom window, glass shredding his flesh as they fell 2 stories onto the stone steps below. The impact shattered the demon's hold. Regan gasped, her real voice, her real eyes, just before Karras's skull cracked against the pavement. As his vision darkened, he saw the first sunrise in weeks breaking over Georgetown. Inside the broken house, Chris sobbed over Regan's breathing body. Outside, by the dying priest, a shadow lingered. Then Father Karras stopped breathing, his face peaceful at last. Somewhere in Rome, an ancient bell tolled for 2 souls. One ascended, one returned to hell. And in a quiet Georgetown bedroom, a little girl's Ouija board spelled out one final message before the planchette crumbled to dust. Next time,